This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. Welcome one, welcome all. Boy, oh boy, we've got something fun cooked up for you today.
Big time. Thank you for being here today, for choosing to spend a little time with us.
Absolutely. God, do we love it. I know I sure do.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, of course, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. On our Facebook, we also have a TikTok. On our Facebook, there is also another page, a little forum where daily we like to interact with our listeners. It's called Citizens of the Milky Way, a Creep Street fan page. Just click the Let Me In button, and one of us will let you in. Everyone's welcome to join.
Please do.
And, of course, if once a week is not enough for you, oh, God.
And, you know, we've said it before, but just in case someone's just kind of popping in now.
Hey, we're getting a lot of new listeners.
We are.
And so maybe we need to reiterate, once a week's not enough, baby.
It's just scientifically, medically, spiritually, and sexually possible to survive with only one episode a week.
Absolutely.
But that's just my opinion.
Right.
But I think it's right, though.
I think it's absolutely right, and I think anyone would be a damned fool not to at least give it a check. Just give it a once-over.
Just think about getting more than this.
Oh, my gosh. Literally movie commentaries.
Yeah.
Bonus episodes, interviews, short stories. My golly, it's just a hodgepodge of wacky stuff. This March, this is going to be our 3-year anniversary.
Yes.
We're going to do a fun little something for the Patreon, just kind of reminiscing over the last 3 years. It'll be a fun little episode for all tiers of the Patreon.
And also, I'm reminded of, I think it was just last year, if I am correct, on our Patreon, we did an episode on leprechauns.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. So that is something you can also have access to if you join the Patreon.
I cannot believe that has been a year ago.
I know. It's not right.
Wow.
It's rude.
Folks, there it is. If you want more, just head on over to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast for all sorts of goodies. Now, Maureen.
Yeah.
Last week, we gave him the old Queen Mary. Oh,
my gosh. Dang, what a wild ride. I mean, I learned, I was scared, I was concerned. I mean, it checked all the boxes.
And also, what a history lesson.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we love that. And thank you to everyone who has listened to it. We're so happy you are listening to it and enjoying it.
I think that's a good way to segue into today's episode, because this also deals with history.
Yeah.
Very dark, tragic history.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And this was actually suggested to us.
Yes.
By one of our wonderful listeners, Maui Reyes, from over in the Philippines, which we have such a wonderful listener base in the Philippines.
Oh my gosh. I mean, when we started this podcast, almost 3 years ago, I would have never guessed that we would, have any people listening in the Philippines.
Yeah, that they would be interested, right?
What a pleasant surprise.
And we are so thrilled and so proud of it.
Yeah.
So proud.
And especially a big ol' shout out to Maui. Thank you so much for sending this our way.
Yes.
And
she sent us this, I think, like maybe even a couple of years ago. She had told us, she had messaged us about this, and I was like, wow, that's really freaky. And I'm so glad we're finally doing it. Maureen, what are we talking about this week?
Today, we are talking about the horror at the Manila Film Center. Whoa, I mean, this episode is fascinating to me.
It's truly heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And, I mean, truly scary in many ways.
Right.
On so many levels. Mm-hmm. It's scary.
Yes. Oh, God. Yeah, it is just so bizarre. And, just a quick disclaimer at the top, because you gotta do it. This whole story, this whole situation takes place in the Philippines. So there could be, things that I have missed or I misunderstand kind of thing. But to the best of my ability, this is what I see as what is going on.
Yes, and obviously we know nothing about the intricacies and complexities of, say, the Filipino government and how elections work there and what politics are like there. So if there's anything we misunderstand or misinterpret or, we obviously don't intend that.
Yeah, let's get into this. Dig a little deeper and kind of... You can, all at home, after this, maybe do a little of your own research and see what you think and, let us know what you think.
Absolutely.
But let's get rip-roaring, ready to go, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And can I pop off with my sources?
Pop them off. Let's hear them.
Okay, come on. First is a YouTube video by The Hollywood Reporter, which is, the title is Why Imelda Marcos Was a Natural Subject. Then there is a fantastic YouTube video called Too Long by the channel Bedtime Stories. Shout out to Bedtime Stories as always. Then there is another video by Arya Ithvanong, and that is called The Restless Spirits of the Manila Film Center. And a wonderful, wonderful article at Esquire called The Mysterious Curse of the Manila Film Center by Nikai de Guzman. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go. Buckle up.
Woo! So this is a very, very compelling story that's going to take us back a little bit in time.
Yeah.
So we are going to head on over to September 3rd, 1972. And this is what I was saying before. Once again, I am not a, historian of Filipino history.
Yeah.
So once again, this is to the best of my knowledge.
Right.
So on September 3rd, 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law in the Philippines. Martial law involves the temporary substitution of military authority for civilian rule and is usually invoked in time of war, rebellion, or natural disaster. When martial law is in effect, the military commander of an area or country has unlimited authority to make and enforce laws.
Sounds serious.
So it's pretty intense.
Sounds rough.
Yikes. If you could avoid it,
yeah,
you're going to want to avoid that. I mean, geez. Here's the deal, though. Ferdinand Marcos and his family ruled the Philippines for over 20 years. And during his reign, his administration accounted for at least 3,257 known extrajudicial killings, 35,000 documented tortures, 77 disappearances, and 70,000 incarcerations. And his family embezzled approximately $10 billion from the people of the Philippines. And during Marcos's time in power, the poor in Philippines just grew poorer and poorer, and there were just a ton of people living in poverty. I mean, 10 billion. I mean, that's crazy.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the torture that these people endured was so severe and so terrible and so long that it was common for some of these people, when they were finally released from being tortured for maybe like 10 years, that often they would take their own lives.
Yeah, it's awful. It's just the worst thing imaginable,
oh
truly.
my
It's heartbreaking, and it can break you in a
Yeah,
way that's
oh my
just
God.
so inhumane
Yeah.
and truly evil.
Truly,
In
it's
whatever
not right.
context.
Yes.
It's evil.
I mean, that pain, I just, so terrible. But Marcos is finally kicked out of the Philippines in 1986 because the people of the Philippines were like, fuck you,
Yeah.
dude.
Gon' get.
Yeah.
Get
and he was
outta
like,
here.
fuck, I guess I'll go to Hawaii. And so he lived there for a while and then he died. But whatever. I don't understand how some people are like able to just like flee to another country and then it's just like fine. I mean, I know there's like laws about it. I'm not like that dumb. Like I know there are laws, but I just think it's weird.
Also, even though this is not a cult story, how many cult leaders have we covered that go to fucking Hawaii?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's crazy.
And I know that's not his reasons for going to
Right, but
Hawaii.
it's just,
I'm just saying just how the irony is that for whatever reason, they all want Hawaii.
Oh God. And I get the feeling that Hawaii doesn't want them.
Yeah, that's what's funny is the good folks of Hawaii probably are not happy
Yeah.
about
They're
it
like,
either.
Jesus Christ, this keeps happening.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Best wishes to you. I hope that shit stops, and I hope it stops quick. But what's very interesting, and to be very honest, I don't know if I understand just from what I have, watched and, I'm just, interested by. Like, a lot of people are actually big supporters of, Marcos and his regime, even though they were under martial law for a big chunk of it. And there was all of these issues that we've already talked about, and there, we'll see some more.
Right.
It's just interesting to me. A lot of people consider Marcos's reign as like the golden era or the golden period for the Philippines.
Wow.
And like a lot of people experienced, the same thing, but they just came out of it with a big difference in opinion, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, which is just very, very interesting.
The human mind is incredible.
Yeah. But what a lot of people thought or believe is that it was kind of an amazing period with advancement in culture and infrastructure, architecture, and things like that. And people believe that the killings weren't nearly as bad as it has been reported on.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of people, they think that the reporting on it just really got blown out of proportion. They believe that it happened, but they don't believe that it was as bad
Right.
as it's,
Right.
as people think.
We see a lot of that. I mean, every country in the world creates their own propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Every country in the world. And so like we see versions of that all over the place of how if you root for one side, you might think a situation is far worse or
Right.
not as bad as it might have been, depending on
Right.
which way you float. And so
Yeah, it's so interesting. Let's talk a little bit about someone named Imelda Marcos.
a fascinating
Yes.
individual.
I mean, could be an episode all her own, and maybe will be.
Truly.
I, didn't really know much about her until I was researching this episode. But wow, what a wild individual. Imelda Marcos was the first lady of the Philippines and really thought of herself as, quote, mother of the Philippines.
Okay.
But one of the individuals in one of my sources that was a human rights activist, said that it was really just, quote, a facade.
Okay. I am shocked.
Yes. And
Let's just say she seems like the type to send the meal back to the kitchen.
yeah,
A few
that's
times.
it. Yeah, that's actually pretty, I think that's pretty spot on.
She's the type to ask to see your manager. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I really feel that. And I think you're assessing it correctly.
Yeah.
But I really kind of do. I do seriously
Yeah.
feel that way because she really had a lot of irons in the fire. She had what's the right term for it? She had
that special something. She had the it factor.
Right. She really did. And she just had, not that it's wrong to have goals. I'm not saying that, okay? But what I'm saying is she had some ulterior motives. You know what I mean? I don't think she really just wanted to be the mother of the Philippines just to be nice.
Ooh, okay. A bit advantageous.
Yeah. Or maybe she thinks she's doing it to be nice, but it's actually, fucked up.
Maybe a bit sociopathic.
You're something.
Okay, I'm interested. My ears are peaked.
Yeah. It was referred to in one of the sources I watched by another human rights activist and artist. Maybe this is an actual term, I don't even know, but I heard it called a conjugal dictatorship. Was this kind of relationship that was going on during the Marcos's administration.
Okay.
During the reign. So this would really work by Ferdinand really, dealing with the military, kind of tough, the hard questions like that kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas Imelda really dealt with and was in charge of and was spearheading the cultural side of the regime. And she was just so obsessed with optics. And she wanted to always look fabulous and glamorous and flaunt her wealth. And she apparently had over 3,000 pairs of shoes. And she wanted you to know about it.
My God, she's like Ric Flair.
I guess. I mean, yeah. So it's kind of this, we're already getting a little bit of this very interesting dichotomy where it's like she's saying she wants to be the mother of the Philippines and wants to be truly like a one with the people. But then her whole thing is not being relatable. It's a little bit of a saviorness that I don't really like.
You see that quality in a lot of politicians.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
yeah. Almost every politician you've heard of has that kind of quality.
Yeah. We'll get to this a little bit later, but someone, an important individual, said that she is one of or the best politician.
Whoa, okay.
But anywho, so Imelda clearly had a lot of sway and impact in what was going on in the Philippines at the time. And pretty much at Imelda's urging, in January of 1981, the Filipino government announced allocating a large amount of funding for a national media project. And that would end up being not only just a prestigious film festival that would rival Cannes, it was thought to be like the Cannes of Asia.
Whoa, okay.
But also a huge film center that housed archives and had showings and premieres and all of these, important things. Imelda really thought this was important. She really wanted people to know that the Philippines was the next big thing. And, she really wanted to just raise the bar. It was going to look like this amazing, huge building. It was supposed to look like the Parthenon in Greece. And the budget for it was $25 million, which was kind of interesting because people were like, oh, that's a really high budget, but also, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Right, when you consider the size and scope of what they were going for. Because when was this? The early, mid-'80s? When was this?
The early 80s,
This was the early 80s. I mean, even then, that might not even be cutting it.
Right, I have no, exactly.
I have obviously no idea of, how those things work.
Right, but I get the same kind of feeling as well.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the budget that was an issue, or maybe the budget was a bigger issue than it would have been if there wasn't such a firm, tight, and short deadline.
And she wanted to stick to that deadline.
Oh, yeah. Baby girl, she was not compromising.
No.
Okay? Because they did not have a lot of time. I think it was a year that was almost a year to the day that they wanted to have the film festival. So it's not only just complete the project, but also have it set up for a very prestigious formal event.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal for a plot of land.
Right.
In just 1 year. So the project leader, named Betty Benitez, decided to hire 4,000 laborers or more that would work in 3 shifts 24 hours a day, and they started immediately.
Wow.
Yes. So just literally constant work for a year.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Some sources said 4,000 people. Some sources said more than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is absolute insanity.
Oh my God, I know. And just for, put it in perspective a little bit, there was the main lobby of this film center, this huge film center. And to complete the lobby, it should have taken 6 weeks. But instead, they completed it in 72 hours.
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Bonkers. That is
Yeah.
just bonkers.
It's like, I don't even understand how that would work, because how do you all tell someone what to do in time? You know what I mean?
know.
Like, who would, organizing that would be insane.
Yeah. Like whoever the foreman is on that job.
Oh my God. I bet there was multiple. And,
Had to be.
Yeah. But still, it's like, geez, that's crazy.
Wow.
So, and you'll kind of see that you can't do this.
Well, that's the whole point of
Right.
this is, yeah.
So on November 17th, 1981, there was a huge accident. It was caused by negligence, but it was an accident. It wasn't a murder or anything like that. Well, I guess it could be considered negligent homicide, but what I mean is this wasn't like a premeditated murder or conspiracy or anything like that. This was an accident. So it was at around 3 a.m., the witching hour.
Wow, I didn't know it happened at 3 a.m.
So, yeah, around 3 a.m., the newly constructed upper floor collapsed, along with the temporary reinforcement. So hundreds of workers fell, and they were either crushed by debris that was falling, they were impaled by the scaffolding that had broken, or just jagged metal from other projects.
Ugh.
Some fell directly into the wet, quick-drying cement. So what was really rough about the cement was it was already going to be dry because they were pouring it too quickly, and they would move on to the next thing too quickly before the cement had a chance to dry.
And we're talking quick dry cement.
And this is quick dry cement, exactly.
So they're moving that quick that
Yes.
even the quick dry cement.
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah, isn't
God.
that's so, it must have been so chaotic in there, that just the frenetic energy.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I'm not breathing.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I can't get a full breath. I'm just stressed thinking about it. So not only was it not dry yet because, they had just poured it, but also there was a miscalculation on the amount of concrete that needed to even be poured. So they poured too much concrete in by accident. So it was more concrete than usual, and it was just extra thick and wet. There was just no chance for it to dry because they were just moving so quickly.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Like I said, there are people that have already passed. There are people in these terrible situations. A lot of the survivors went in to try to help the people that had fallen into the quick dry cement, but unfortunately, since it is quick dry, it hardened around their legs before they had a chance to actually get out.
Ugh.
Getting in cement is a whole thing. I don't know the science behind it. I don't watch Grey's Anatomy, but I did watch one episode of it one time, and it had to do with someone jumping in a vat of concrete. And it's a whole fucking thing. It's not you just break you off and then you're fine. It's not they just chisel you out of there. It fucks with your body. I don't really remember exactly what is happening, but it's it's bad.
Well, do you remember the that magician?
Yes. Oh my God. I know. I forgot about that until right now.
That was the cement. Yeah. It's truly, to even think about, you can't even really think about it without starting to have
it's just
attack of an anxiety attack.
Right.
Imagine just a sudden moment, and there is absolute horror and terror, the worst fear and pain imaginable in 1 second. And there's hundreds of them. It's hard to even fathom.
So then Benitez, the one that was, making some of these calls about the construction, she gave orders to the military to block off the whole scene at the film center and, not allow any media entry or to give the media any information. But not only that, first responders weren't allowed in until 9 hours after the accident started.
Awful.
Just because they wanted to have a block off the media. So it's clear that she was just focused on construction and resuming as soon as possible to meet her deadline and not caring for the dead, dying, and injured.
Not at all.
Yeah. And here is a quote that I think is just crazy. And it's by Nina Bengino, and she was the former public relations officer for the Manila International Film Festival. And this is what she has to say. From a distance, I could see people in stretchers being carried out, frozen in cement. When I got there, they were still digging out people. The cement was not completely hard, and there was a guy that we were trying to keep from going into shock. Half of his body was buried. He was alive, but half buried. I don't know what it was to keep him awake, alert, not to go into a coma or shock. They kept singing Christmas songs. I was watching this. So horrifying.
How heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And the Christmas songs it just drives it home oh.
They were just doing whatever they could to kind of distract this person. And then, unfortunately, this does get worse. On both living and dead people, they would cut off the limbs to get the people out of the concrete. So, cut off their legs if they were standing, if their arm was stuck, anything like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
As if they're nothing more than weeds growing through cracks in the cement.
Yep, exactly. So the dead people, and maybe even some dying people, were just sadly in this concrete, and it was ordered that more concrete be poured over them, entombing them there in the concrete of the building.
Ugh.
Instead of, getting a jackhammer out and really, getting all the bodies out. They just thought it would be faster if we just leave them there and keep going. And here is another illuminating, just wild quote that it's even real by Mila Yoren. And she was the head of marketing, even the head of the Manila International Film Festival. And she said this: I was told they cut up all the ones that were exposed, remove and build over, which is why the seats are very steep. It was a rush job. They had to finish the project, period.
Awful.
Yeah. And so it seems that at least 168 people died. But it's not an official number because of the media blackout, so it's hard to know what happened. And also because the lack of documentation during the construction period of this. And there were so many people that worked there. And also that construction resumed almost immediately.
Wow. Yeah. It boggles the mind.
It really does. But so, as we've, talked about a little bit before, the people of the Philippines, this isn't a rule, of course, but they tend to be a little bit more open-minded and accepting of maybe the paranormal.
Okay, yeah.
Of the other side.
Yes.
And so, because this tragedy happened, the Marcos family acknowledged that this was a thing. And Imelda Marcos, she acknowledged that the accident happened, but she said that only 7 people died and there were no bodies left in the building. Yes. However, they still acknowledged that something happened, and maybe they actually, knew that more than this happened, and that's why they were so worried about this. But they immediately pretty much decided to pursue clearing out the negative energy or spirits from the building because, of the tragedy.
Absolutely.
And apparently a fortune teller told Emi Marcos, who is the daughter of Imelda and Ferdinand, the fortune teller told her that if she ever entered the film center, she would die. So the family, spared no expense, and they did pagan rites. They did Catholic rites. They did Chinese rites. They apparently maybe even did animal sacrifices. I don't know. And officers were given amulets that I believe are called antings. If I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, I'm so sorry, but I believe that's what it's called. And these were to protect them or to ward off evil spirits.
Wow.
Yeah. And believe it or goddamn not, they actually met the timeline, and the Manila Film Center was complete for the film festival in late January of 1982. But what's weird is that no one in attendance, or almost no one in attendance, I guess, had any idea about the accident and the loss of life and the bodies within the structure of the building.
How gross.
Isn't that crazy?
How just revolting in a way. Like,
Yeah, to like have people do that. Like it just like is so personal. It's so invasive.
well, and also one of the sources you used, they talked about, because it's a big film festival, there's dancing and everything. They
Yeah.
were literally, most of them did not know it, but they were literally
Right.
walking and dancing on
Yes.
people's graves.
And not just people's like graves where they were laid to rest.
No.
Like the spots where they died, and just no one did anything to get them out.
Wow.
Yeah. But with all this said, the film festival kind of slapped. The film festival was actually a huge success, and it propelled the film industry in the Philippines forward. The New York Times called it, quote, an all-out spectacular. And there were people there such as Priscilla Presley, Jeremy Irons, and Brooke Shields.
Wow.
So even though it was a success, it was right to the damn wire.
Right.
They were working up until the hour before the event began. And they cut it so close that on people's hems of their pants or their dresses, they had remnants of wet concrete, paint, and some people may have said even blood.
Wow.
Now, the blood was probably added for effect, but I think people really did have the wet cement on them.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was that down to the wire. They put carpet down on wet cement, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I said, even though the event was a success, some weird things did happen.
I mean, this was something, it was not in use long.
No, not
And
at
I'm
all.
sure we'll get into that.
Oh, yeah. Apparently, an ambulance had to be called more than once to the event to tend to guests, what could really only be described as passing episodes. Just like a quick medical event that was temporary and, is not a recurring thing. Just like some weird medical event.
Okay.
Maybe you faint, some shit like that. I don't know.
Okay.
Now, apparently, some visitors said that they experienced extreme chills, so intense and so all-consuming that it completely incapacitated them, while other people said they experienced a crushing sensation on their chests. And Imelda herself, when she was doing promotion for the film festival in the Film Center, she even said herself about the Philippines, "It's both east and west, right and left, rich and poor. We are neither here nor there." And gosh darn it, if that's not something we talk about when we talk about the paranormal,
Yeah, neither here nor there.
I mean, that kind of a little bit of both stuck in between. I mean, hello, it's happening. So yes, some strange things happened, of course, and we'll get into more of the strange things. But as I have said a few times at this point, the event was a success. So I don't really get it. I don't really understand, but the government pulled the necessary funding to, keep it going, to keep the film festival going forward, and just to keep the film center going forward in general. I don't really understand that, just because before she kind of like just made it happen, it seemed like, because she just is in a very high position of power, but then now like she can't do it. So I'm just kind of curious about that, and I'm sure it's a very nuanced situation.
Yeah.
The moral of the story, the point of this story at this point is that the government pulled the necessary funding. So when they did it the second year, they kind of like opened it up a
Right.
little bit more. And they even had like softcore porn, or like almost softcore porn, like exhibited there.
Oh, wow.
So after that second year, it was no more. After the film center fell into disuse, ran out of funding, the building was vacant for, good stretches of time. And because of that, the building really began to fall apart, just from, lack of being tended to, and also because it was just poor construction in the first place.
Right.
And it wasn't long until Benny Benitez died herself in a very bad car accident. She was crushed to death in the car, in the passenger seat, while the driver was left completely uninjured.
Wow.
And a medium who later went to the film center said that Betty's spirit was also there. And over the years, many people have claimed to see ghosts wandering around the building, inside and outside. And there have also been reports of odd smells in backstage areas within the building.
Right.
And people reporting that they feel cold, tingly, or like someone is blowing cold air on them.
Yeah.
Which I really don't. That I hate.
Yeah.
I hate that. Before we really catch up on what the hell is even going on these days, let's jump back just a scotch to learn a little bit more about some hauntings, about some contact.
Okay.
So, this happened apparently one day during the first film festival. It was near the end of the day, and the cleaning crew was working, and several armed men all of a sudden arrived on site. And they said that they were members of the presidential support group, and they were sweeping the building because the First Lady, Imelda Marcos, would be visiting the building the following day. And, that was fine. That's not wild to, that makes sense. But then all of the sudden, there's this big kerfuffle, and everyone is corralled together into a room at gunpoint. The officers demand that whoever has been playing tricks on the officers to step forward. And of course, no one steps forward, because no one is playing tricks on officers.
Yeah.
What? Especially, it's no, I don't think that's happening. But then later, the cleaning crew discovered that one of the bodyguards had a very frightening experience.
Okay.
So apparently, he was patrolling the floors and checking to make sure everything was, all set and good to go and no danger. And so he continued on, and he got to the lower levels of the building. And when he was in the lower levels of the building, it was of course very dark down there, when all of a sudden he saw some movement in the darkness ahead of him. He called out to the person, but the person or figure or whatever it was began to run away. So the bodyguard pulled out his gun and began chasing after the figure or person or whatever. He followed him until it disappeared through a closed door ahead of him. The bodyguard approached the door and tried the handle, but the door was locked. He called for backup on his radio, and immediately following that, kicked down the door. But when he went inside, it was completely empty. But there was a freezing sensation that almost paralyzed him. And then he heard a voice whisper in his ear, "Too long," which means help. When the backup finally arrived, they found the bodyguard flailing his gun all over the room, completely scared out of his mind.
Wow.
So then after a major earthquake in 1990, the film center, which was already, abandoned for years, was officially declared, a condemned building.
Right,
like
it's too unsafe to even, go inside. Right.
However, a lot of kids and groups of people and teenagers and whatever would still go into the building because they wanted to see if they could find, any leftover items or anything. And apparently one time, a group came in to explore, and it was during the day. But, however, as they got deeper and deeper into the film center, they noticed that not only did the temperature drop and continue to drop, but it got darker and darker as there was less and less sunlight. Then they noticed a viscous substance just sliding down the walls. They got a little closer to it and realized that it was wet concrete, and it looked like the walls were melting. So they began to run away, but then one of their friends screamed, and they all turned around, and there was an arm coming out of the concrete floor, wrapped around the friend's leg. The arm was stained with blood, and you could see the bone. The friend eventually got out, and they all ran away, but later the friend found bruises on his leg in the shape of a handprint.
Very, very scary.
But then in 2001, the center then is released to this company called Amazing Philippines Theater, and they do live shows, I guess, but I don't really know what the shows are. And I guess they fixed up the building, but not a lot.
I was going to say, well, how did it become safe enough for them to do shows?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay,
they must have done some renovations, but that's happening, I guess. And this maybe is more of an urban legend, but I think it's still worth saying, and maybe it's true.
Let's hear it.
Apparently, after a performance of the amazing show that was at the Manila Film Center, a body of a young woman was found lying on the steps of the building. The police eventually came to the conclusion that the death must have been drug-related, but it seemed like they only came to that conclusion because there really wasn't any evidence. But since then, an apparition of a young woman has been seen in and around the building. And this has even happened to the degree that rehearsals or even performances have to be stopped because performers are saying that some random woman is just walking around on stage.
Oh, wow.
Now, several taxi drivers have also said that they have seen this woman or someone as well. They've been flagged down by a woman outside of the film center in the early morning with some just minor injuries and asks for a ride to the hospital. But at some point during the ride, she just completely disappears. Now, there are these Filipino spiritualists called K-stores, I think is what they call it, K-stores. And there were 80 of them that held seances in the film center, and apparently they claim that there are at least 30 spirits there that are not at peace. Now, what is very interesting is that, the Marcos family was taken down back in the 80s. However, not too long ago, Bongbong Marcos, aka Ferdinand and Imelda's son, he was elected as president of the Philippines.
Oh, wow.
It's just a very, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't get it. But it is a wild situation, to say the least. But
wow.
Yeah, this story is so interesting because there are a lot of sources that mention that this happened, but not a ton of sources that really go into detail about it.
Right, absolutely.
It's kind of that same thing where a lot of people actually really like the Marcoses and miss them and are glad that, Bongbong Marcos is the president.
Right.
So I think a lot of these people that feel that way, they also think that this tragedy was, of course, a terrible accident, but not nearly on par with what actually happened.
Right.
They think that a few people died. And once again, not saying that doesn't matter, but they're saying that it's not as big of a cover-up.
Right. Exactly.
They think that it happened, and they're not covering it up at all.
Right.
Whereas many other people feel like, this actually did happen.
Right.
And it's not really being addressed or resolved
Right.
in any kind of way. Not that it even can be resolved, but yeah, it's a crazy story, and I really want to hear all of your thoughts and opinions on this. Reach out to us on social media, comment on photos or DM us, or you can even email us at creepstreetpodcast@gmail.com. Anything like that. We want to hear what you think really went down, what your opinion is on this, and I think it's just an intense story.
Yeah.
With also some spooky, scary stuff in there as well.
Absolutely. Well, Maureen, I've got a list of names I wouldn't mind taking to the movies.
Okay.
Folks, give it on up for our top-tier Patreon subscribers. Of course, the Dream James Watkins, the Finished Face via Lungfist, the Madman Marcus Hall, the Vivacious Vicky McHugh, the Tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the Heartbreak Kid Chris Hackworth, the Oh-So Suave Sean Richardson, the British Bonebreaker Bex Martin, the Notorious Nicholas Barker, the Terrifying Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the Sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Loathsome Johnny Love, the Carnivorous Kevin Bogey, the Killer Stud Carl Staub, the Firestarter Heather Carter, the Conqueror Christopher Damian Damaris, the Awfully Awesome Annie, the murderous Maggie Leach, the serve sexy Sam Hackworth, the evil Elizabeth Riley, Lauren Hellfire, Hernandez Lopez, the maniacal Laura Maynard, the vicious Karen Van Buren, the arch nemesis Aaron Bird, the sadistic Sergio Castillo, the rapscallion Ryan Crum, the beast Benjamin Huang, the devilish Chris Doucette, the psycho Sam, the electric Emily Zhang, the ghoulish Gert Hankum, the renegade Corey Ramos, the crazed Carlos, the antagonist Andrew Park, the monstrous Michaela Schur, the witchy wonder J.P. Weimer, and the freaky Ben Forsyth.
Wow, thank you so much for listing off those righteous names. I mean, those true, beautiful, rock solid names.
It's a pleasure, my treasure, and I would do it all day and all night.
Thank you so much to our top tier Patreon subscribers. If you want to be like them, you can head on over to patreon.com/creepstreetpodcast and you can find the right tier that is right for you. We've got great stuff all over the damn place.
That's right.
Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, share us on social media. Tell your ding-dang nephew about us. He might like it. You never know. Just think about it. Once again, just thank you so much for being here. We love you so much, and have a great day.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye now.